Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
Just last night, actually, I was working and one of the users sent me an email that said, I really hope this takes off because the truth of the matter is I get really lonely when I'm on the road and I need this resource. So keep at it. And that buoyed me to keep going, at 11 o'clock at night when I wanted to be sleeping.
Hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday and it's the Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks for tuning in. As per usual, I've got a fantastic guest here in the Epicast studios. So today I'm talking to Ellen Saksen from Go Jane Go. Go Jane Go is a startup that intends to be the toolbox for the female business traveler. Their first tool that they're releasing and is now available in a small beta is Amelia. Amelia is designed to help the female business traveler sort of find out what the word is out there on the street when you're in a different town. Maybe you can match up and meet up with people that are in the same town. Maybe not be alone when you're out there on the road. Before we get started, you know what I'm going to ask you for. I'm going to ask you to rate and review this show, and I'm going to ask you to do it in iTunes. 1 stars, 2 stars, up to 5 stars. Give us comments and feedback. Let people know whether or not they're going to like this show. It is the easiest way for them to find new programming. Reading the reviews that are there in the podcasts app there on your iPhone, on your iPad. It's super easy to do, and if you would do it, I would appreciate it. Make sure you check out the website. That's pitchwerks.com, and you spell that Pitchwerks. Same thing for the LinkedIn company page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Always put the E in works, and you will find us. And please, by all means, interact with us while you're there. Again, today, Ellen Saksen, Go Jane Go. They just betaed a new product called Amelia. Let's see what Ellen's up to. All right, let's extend a warm welcome to Ellen Saksen from Go Jane Go, makers of the Amelia app. Ellen, how are you?
Hi, Scott. I'm great. It's super to be here.
You looked a little bit surprised that I got all of that out correctly the first go. Who have you been talking to?
You have done this before, clearly.
I first got to know about what you were working on. I was at the demo day, Pittsburgh Demo Day, and you had the great fortune of going first. How did that happen? How did you get picked to go first?
It was awesome. I was so glad to go first because I'm the kind of person that to have to sit there the whole time and be nervous, I was glad to get it out of the way. I think when I asked, why me? Why do I get to have this honor? And, they like our idea. They like what we're trying to do. GoJaneGo.co is the website where we started. Amelia is the app, which is a tool. But we want to be a true resource for female business travelers because there is nothing like that out there right now. Mm-hmm. So we want to be a place where you can not only read about losing your luggage in the middle of the night and having to go to a board meeting the next day, but you can also read about where to get a suit at 8 o'clock in the morning in Chengdu, China. It's for a very specific niche, and they saw my slides, and my slides looked a little different than other companies that were very businessy, and while ours are, they had some personality to them, so they wanted to kick off with a little bit of personality. I
will say this, and if it's okay, we'd like to put the slides actually on our site so that people can see what we're talking about.
Sure,
but
sure.
The vibe that they gave me was that lifestyle integration thing, where there's a work aspect to it because what you're working on is people actually traveling for work. But you're more than that. It's a whole life sort of consideration where it's like, okay, but what about after I leave the office in this town that I'm not from? Yeah,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
It was very well done. Did you do that in house or did you hire somebody?
I hired someone. Her name is Emily Marco, and she's a genius. And she's local here to Pittsburgh, and she's a visual storyteller. Which, since you saw our slides, they're visually stimulating, and they did a great job of telling our story. How we got to the idea, and then how to execute. So
a lot of them have that overly grid-like layout, and it almost feels as though because you understand what the shape of the slide and the shape of the presentation is going to be, or at least some part of you thinks you know what's going to come next, right? And I get this feeling of I don't know what's coming next in the deck that you presented. It became slightly unpredictable because like, okay, this circle appeared here, and then this other one, like this one here is at 9:00, and this one pops up at 2:00.
Yeah.
And it did. I know it sounds sort of like very basic and maybe even a little bit funny, but that doesn't change the fact that that's exactly how it hit me. It resonated with me that I didn't know where something was going to pop up next, and maybe I should be paying attention.
That's really interesting feedback. I think it's good to kind of keep people aware and engaged, right? So if you're telling me that worked, I'll use it again.
It definitely worked. Too many times I think people, they see PowerPoint as the backdrop when they're in that big auditorium scene that you were in. People couldn't really see your face. They couldn't see the expressions that you were making. The deck, unfortunately, was, in a manner of speaking, your face. And the fact that your face wasn't plain and predictable in that sense, but instead animated and interesting, I think went a long way. But unfortunately, you ran into some technical issues. And
I did.
I can't give you enough credit for how you handled it because, again, you went first. It's a pretty important room.
Right.
And it could have happened to anybody.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I saw you pressing on the remote, and the animations weren't kicking in, and the slides weren't advancing.
Right.
Tell us what happened.
We had practiced the day before and that morning, and everything was fine. And my clicker short circuited basically. And I do have a lot of animations on the slide, and that's a risk that you run, right, when you don't just have straight up basic slides. And it was a risk that I was willing to take. And fortunately, I'd been through the slides so many times that I knew them verbatim and knew it was coming. So, I guess I'm just I've been through a lot of highs and lows in my life, and I've learned to not treat something like life and death unless it actually is life or death. And it was neither of those things. So you just got to roll with it, and I think that kind of approach has helped me in an entrepreneurial role, right?
Yes.
Because every day brings enormous highs and enormous lows, and you have to just kind of float somewhere in the middle. And that was just, I think, a good example of, my ability that I've learned over time to not get too excited about things and to not get too low about things. So,
you're a mom, right?
I am.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I've obviously never been a mom, but
there's still times.
I watched my mom go back to the workplace after she stayed at home with my brothers and I, right? It was funny to watch. She would come home and sort of laugh at what people were so twisted up about.
Yeah.
I'd be like, that's nothing compared to keeping humans alive, right?
Right, exactly, sure. And I think, too, it's funny, my relationships of the past had criticized me for that because they would give me diamond earrings for Christmas, and I'd say, "Oh, thanks," or something really horrendous would happen. One time I left the gas on Thanksgiving morning and almost blew up the neighborhood, and I think other normal people would have been freaking out about that. And I said, "Thank you" to all the firefighters that came, and I didn't blow up the neighborhood, but I think I just sort of operate on generally on one level, and that is. At this point, helpful, though it can be perplexing to people that I'm in relationships with.
So you may actually even be on a lower frequency than just the mom frequency.
I think that's fair.
You said you ran into some other things though that sort of taught you life stuff that taught you. That's probably figuring in here.
Definitely.
I don't want to pry, but do you mind? What would those things be?
Yeah. So I have my son Rory is 5 and my daughter Flynn is 3, but they had an older brother who would have been 7 this year. And it was an enormous ordeal when he was born. He was very sick. And, just going through understanding what was happening. And then, we lost him. He was very, very young. And that was a defining moment in my life. And in an interesting way, I think that even drove me to do what I'm doing now, because I've just come to the point where life for me is too short to be doing things that I really don't appreciate, that really don't bring me any kind of reward or joy, because I know what it's like to be at the very, very bottom, to experience something that, parents aren't generally meant to experience. And it leveled me, obviously. But it gave me an appreciation for things that drives me to really understand perspective.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I feel terribly guilty for even asking.
Oh, that's okay. You can cut it out if you don't want to include it.
No, it's
that's okay.
It's the right thing for people to hear.
Yeah.
Because I do think that we worry so much about being safe, right?
Yeah, right.
Safety doesn't help you gain perspective. If anything, it takes it away from you, right?
Correct. That is correct.
It's easy to be hypersensitive, to overreact when you're living within this sort of very narrow,
right.
lane that you've created for yourself.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, it is basically the same thing, just more of it. The reason that I saw it in my mom was the fact that she had 104-degree temperature on a kid that she didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. So you come in and somebody goes, I can't believe that they're changing the coffee vendor at the office.
Right.
Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah.
My mom came back to the workplace with more perspective than most of the people that would be there causing the biggest scene. This is same church, different pew.
Right.
You're saying once you understand what's really going on, you look at the small things differently.
Right, correct.
So,
and you prioritize differently too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying there aren't emergencies in business. We were running out of money at one point, and I'm sure we will again.
Yes.
And that, put me in a bad mood, but I didn't lose sleep over it. There are other things. My children will give me plenty of opportunities to lose sleep, I'm sure. But, having to wait a few days to buy a new computer was not one of those things. So.
Right. Go Jane Go is the company.
Mm-hmm, correct.
Amelia is an app for, as I understand it, women who travel for business, because you uncovered a pain point that they were changing jobs more frequently. Mm-hmm. Is that an accurate representation?
Yeah. I mean, travel roles are hard to fill in general. People know that if you travel a lot, that's hard on a person. It's hard on your personal life and your professional life, and but they're even harder to fill with women. Women in travel roles, like heavy, especially sales and consulting travel roles. Generally by the time you are at that point where you're getting a role like that, you have attached to a partner, and maybe you have a family. Mm-hmm. Certainly, you have obligations. Maybe an aging parent or whatever. Lots of other things that occupy your bandwidth.
Right.
And so turnover is very high in those roles. But I think, the more, even the month that we've been since demo day, Scott, we're continuing to uncover the insight, right, of why we did this. I know why I did it with my co-founder, Kate Nichols. But what we're finding now is what's resonating is that people just want to be able to admit in a space that business travel is lonely. And it's hard.
I have said this before on this show. I remember thinking that once they start paying for me to fly places, that'll mean I made it.
Right. Yeah.
And then you realize that making it sucks.
It does. It totally sucks.
It kind of really is. There's a reason they pay you for this.
That's right. I mean, our first website, the landing page in big block letters said business travel sucks.
Yeah.
And we got some flack for that because, using an expletive and, we do have some older users. And they said, yes, it's true. I just don't want to see that word first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is the prevailing sentiment among people who know that, business travel can be incredibly rewarding, right? I mean, I think most of us have incredible stories of crazy things that have happened, or, we've met rock stars, or,
just great towns that you've discovered.
Yeah, great towns, exactly. And I'm not saying it's always a slog, but when you have to do it a lot, it becomes lonely and trying, and business travel burnout, I mentioned in my pitch, is a real thing. There are countless outlets have written about it, with the effect that it has on retention and productivity and morale. So this is our hope is that this online community of women who travel for business will counteract some of that business travel burnout. So,
but it's disproportionately high among women is a point
yes.
we need to make.
Right.
Now I know you have numbers on this, but I also have to feel like there's probably a lot of context that's required around it.
Yeah.
What's the best way to approach that with somebody who's fresh to it? Like when you're first talking to somebody about the concept behind Amelia, mm-hmm. are you just going to hit them with the general numbers? How does that go?
Depends on who you are, right?
Right.
So if you're an HR person at a large corporation, we're going to talk about how women are still 85% more likely to be assaulted when we're by ourselves.
Right.
But you put me next to a woman and we're having a conversation. It's as if a virtual wall goes up around us. We are not the target that we once were when we're sitting by ourselves. It's a psychological thing, right? That you don't see harassment of 2 or 3 women as much as you see harassment of 1, right? So simply by pairing us up with someone else at the bar, another woman, the target comes off of our back. And I'm not talking about a target of violence generally, but just of unwanted attention.
Yes.
And we're so used to shrugging it off. Women are we've learned to deal with it on the same level that we've learned to deal with sexual harassment, which sucks also.
Of course.
But, you get to a point in your career and you're just, unfortunately, we become used to it. And Kate and I felt that we didn't want to feel that way about this kind of, of the business travel slog too, of, working a crazy long day and doing a great job, making lots of money for the companies we work for, going to the bar and having to accept the fact that this guy is going to come up next to us and want to talk. And I will be friendly, of course, but we've all been in just sticky situations where someone has misread something or we haven't been clear enough, but we want to be alone or, whatever it is. And my sense is, N of 1, qualitative and conversations I've had, that men don't necessarily have to deal with that kind of attention when you're sitting by yourselves too. So
I can't say that I have any issues to report.
Yeah,
no,
okay,
I think I'm
yeah.
pretty clean on this
All right,
subject.
good.
But
Yeah.
So how do you fix it?
So anyway, we start out with, and depending on who you are, like safety statistics, we'll get an HR person to listen, right? And then if you're a marketing person or a salesperson, you've been there. So we just have to say, come on, we know it sucks. We know
Right.
that it's lonely. We know that it's tiring. We know that it's exhausting. We know that you don't want to eat, a crusty granola bar from your purse that you've been carting around, right?
No.
So it's really getting to that emotional insight that you've been there. And then when we talk to the sort of women's affinity groups, they're within companies to help women climb, to help break the glass ceiling, to help get them resources that they're not used to asking for, to introduce them to people. And that's where we come in too. We can position ourselves as a tool that can aid in women achieving the way that they should be or the way that they want to be. And so it's seen as a community builder, a networking tool, while at the same time being a safety tool. And
there's
a
no
connectivity
cost to them other than to just use it. Am I right?
To them, the individual women? Correct. Right now, there is no cost. The beta is open. So we just launched it 2 weeks ago. So you can join at amelia-app.com and be part of the beta and let us know how it's going. But after the beta period is over in October, the hope is that we have good data.
Yes.
And that those data will tell us a lot about how women are using it, when they're using it, how often they're using it. And then I will go to the banks and law firms and CPG companies of the world and say, this is the tool, this is how it works, and you should give me $10,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 for it annually.
Right.
So, and in return, you'll be able to say, we invested in women's safety and connectivity on the road. We care about women when they're traveling for business, and we're willing to invest in your ability to stay safe and connected.
Well, I like the fact that you're building in the concept that it's not really baked yet. Right. You need the data first, and you need these beta users to help you get there.
Yep.
And the community aspect of it, kind of takes that one step further in the fact that I think a lot of us, whenever we try something new, we do it with other people that we just like talking about the new thing that we're trying.
Yeah. That's important. I think the other thing too is that the number one reason why women stay at a job, in a position, at a company, is because of the community they have there. That's the number one reason we cite, is job satisfaction based on the community we have at work. And we're trying to build that same community on the road. So,
well, if I may, your community at home tells you which bars are a little skeevy and which bars are safe.
Right.
Safe in quotation marks. Right. Obviously, anything can happen anywhere, right? You're never totally safe. But the idea of this one has a better track record than that one.
Right.
or this is a place where the food is good, this is a place where the food is bad. Your community at home helps to inform you. You've got all these sort of data sensors. Now, granted, they're people, right? But they kind of go around for you and they're like, oh, traffic is terrible on that part of the town if it's, baseball season. And this one over here is, the drinks are always watered down, but they're always, twice the price what they're supposed to be. You don't have that on the road.
Right.
And it's one of the things I think too many people are trying to solve, maybe in a broad brush kind of a way, where it's just like every traveler should use this for everything.
Yeah.
I find to give you something similar but not the same. Yelp causes a problem by making it so that only whiners will run to Yelp. Right?
Yeah.
Because if it was good, you didn't run to Yelp.
Right. Correct.
So that's where I go if I want to know what the complaints about a place are. But I'm never going to hear about oh, this was divine, and make sure you get the tiramisu.
Right. That's true. Yelp is definitely a good place for haters. Yeah.
Well, but then it seems as though you can easily, in a lot of different technologies, make something too general, make something too basic, and then the only reason that you would have to report into it would be those base instincts, right? I hate this place. Right. I'm scared of this place, right? They made me vomit.
Right, yeah.
not in a hate this place, like in a literal physical illness sort of a way.
Right.
I like the idea of something being sort of the community looks out for its own, because I actually think you'll get high and trust me, I'm unencumbered by fact here. I'm just
you admit it. That's great.
It's one of my more endearing qualities.
Your gut tells you that women would be more likely to share positive
think any community. If you truly believe you're a part of the community, you contribute because you care about the community.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's for everybody, it's not so much the same.
That's true. And I think the cool thing that keeps me going, just last night, actually, I was working and one of the users sent me an email that said, I really hope this takes off, because the truth of the matter is I get really lonely when I'm on the road, and I need this resource. So keep at it. And that buoyed me to keep going, at 11 o'clock at night when I wanted to be sleeping. And there are more and more of us, right? Every single year, there are more women traveling for business because we're achieving those middle and upper management ranks. We're finding ways to split the care of our children and our families with our partners. And there are more and more of us, and we have more money, and we still can't find what we need more on the road.
You know what you just said, though, that's really interesting to me? I just realized, so you said something along the lines of underserved, underappreciated, effectively driving at the fact that people don't understand the story behind this person, right?
Right.
And it kind of made me take stock of how many times, just in popular culture and in regular coverage, we hear the story behind the female traveling business person, executive, consultant, salesperson, right? I can name off the top of my head movies, TV shows, those types of things that focused on a male character that fits that description, right?
Yeah.
I cannot do the same with too many, maybe one or two, and I think they're probably supporting characters in a lot of cases, which means that the scripts that are written and the fiction that's sort of unfolding around those characters hasn't really been explored.
Right.
So it almost is entertainment.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to cheapen it, right?
Yeah, sure.
But it's kind of surprising when you're sitting there like, how are you this world of things I've never been exposed to?
Right.
And it's because the places where you hear interesting stories about people, those aren't the characters that are really being written.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
It felt a little bit like it might be a ramble, but
no, I was with you the whole time.
I'm so happy.
I think that's a really interesting path that you just took, because what we're finding in the hundreds of interviews that we've done and continue to do is the amazing things that have to happen for a woman to get on a plane for business. The enormous amount of planning, especially if you have children, husbands, partners, and even like aging parents, right? you move mountains. I mean, I had to move a mountain to get here tonight. You move mountains.
Yeah, it was fairly complicated getting the right scheduling. I know.
Yeah. But when you disappear for, let's say, 3 days to Chicago, or, one of my colleagues just went to Hong Kong tonight for 2 weeks, and she has a son. And
that's hard.
Yeah. And, she had to make plans, and it's also summer, so he's not in school. So it's making sure there's coverage and camps and doctor's appointments. And and I'm not saying that men don't do that. I know that they do, but the things that women put together to get out of the house are amazing to me. And these women that are walking down the runway don't even look like they've been through the ringer, but most of us have in some capacity to get where we're going. And the stories are so rich, and because they're real, right? They're real. And right now, there's no place for these women to be honest about how hard it is, but also how rewarding it is to get home at the end and having closed $1 million deal, and you kick your heels off and you're like, hell yeah, I just did it, and I'm going to do it again next week. And maybe we'll get to a point at some point where we're actually compensated at the same level that men are for doing those sorts of things. But I mean, it's amazing. What these women are doing is fantastic, and that also drives us to keep going.
And I have about the relative depth of a puddle here. So understand, I go into this understanding that. As a marketing pitch, though, as somebody trying to say, like, how does Amelia go from where it is to being more of a household name? Mm-hmm. I'm almost tempted to play off of that sort of, you're going to love the stories
right
from the road. If you were to make a bank shot off of a comment like that, or a concept like that, where you're saying, like, look, you know what? You can't get these stories anywhere else.
Right.
I think that all of a sudden sort of, if anybody's on the fence, it pulls them off of it.
Yeah. I mean, the stories are real.
I think it's what keeps
honest,
people maybe checking the app.
Right. That's the hope, right? That they come back and that they see something interesting or funny. I mean, humor is a good medium for us too, because you have to be able to laugh when you're traveling.
Keep them crying.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's always something that's going to go wrong. I have never been on a flawless business trip. I don't know about you.
How about this? They seem intent on reducing the amount of satisfaction I have every year.
Yeah, it does seem like it's getting worse every time.
And it's almost like it's intentional. It seems like, and I may be wrong here, you are actively avoiding the word social network. Am I right?
For someone who is as shallow as a puddle, you are pretty perceptive, Scott.
It's almost like I've been doing this.
I know. Yeah, we are. For a couple of reasons. Because once you call yourselves that, you're pigeonholed. We don't want to be pigeonholed.
I'm glad that you made that decision, honestly. Yeah, I think everybody that ever wanted to be a social network after Facebook was not taken seriously. Right,
exactly. Now, that said, I'm not going to, look down my nose at a potential acquisition by a popular social network.
That's an entirely different question.
Unnamed. But I think we talk about the halo effect of this tool being that we build our networks. Because it's not often as easy for us. I mean, go to any bar and you see two dudes sitting around like talking about sports, and I can talk about sports forever. I can. But I don't have the comfort level that I think a lot of men have, just, saddling up to the bar, talking to the bartender or the guy sitting next to you about what's going on.
Well, because there are other meanings there about accessibility and familiarity that may cause a problem for you that we may not want to explore.
Right. Yeah, true.
Makes perfect sense to me. It's the same reason that if I were sitting alone at a bar, because I'm happily married, right? I wouldn't just all of a sudden start talking sports with a woman.
Right. Or anything else.
Who seemed like she was interested, because it sends a signal of, I'm interested in familiarity, which again is not necessarily something I want to explore.
Right. Exactly. Are you for hire? Because we're looking for a marketing person. That's not true. We can't pay you yet. But someday. I think the social network thing, we are a community. That's first and foremost. And the halo effect is that we build a network. We can network up, we can network down, we can network across. But most important is the shared experience, which, I don't think a lot of networks have right now, the shared experience. I can think of a couple niche ones, but, not the big ones. It's a
No,
much bigger
it's
pool.
intentionally vanilla ice cream,
Right, yeah.
so that whatever your experience is, they don't repel you.
Right, exactly.
I don't think you should be a social network, if you don't mind me pontificating for a moment. I think, if anything, the toolbox idea, and again, I mean, I hate the idea of overplaying this, but the entertainment aspect.
Yeah.
eHarmony makes a business out of matching people up who believe in the same stuff.
I think there's an untapped resource for brands who really want to serve us.
I was wondering whether or not that
know?
wasn't the final play here, is the fact that the easiest way to access a particular demographic might be through maybe not this tool, but one of the tools that you build.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the hope is that we become a resource for brands who care, or who brands who want to reach us, and we want to be partners in building what that looks like. So, I mean, hotels are an example, right? There are hotels out there who are serving the female business traveler by putting, crystal coffee cups and pink chandeliers in their rooms, which, if you're into that sort of thing, that's great. But you're not providing any kind of insight or style or ease. You're doing nothing to make my stay easier or more rewarding. You're just changing the colors on it. And that doesn't constitute value to me. So, but I can tell you a lot of things that I want as a female business traveler that would constitute value, that are probably different from the male business traveler. And hotels have published that most of them get between 60 and 70% of their revenue from the male business traveler, from the business traveler rather. And that's a lot. They obviously care about serving the business traveler. And as women become a higher and higher percentage of that, my hope is that they'll start to care what we think about our business travel experience.
I think this has always been one of the threats posed by, you take a survey that's not administered by someone who's really good at data. The demographics sampling, the geographic sampling, the genders and education and income, all of these things affect the outcome.
Right.
And a lot of times, it's just like, well, put a comment card in this white box at the front when you check out, and we'll do whatever we can to make your stay better.
Yeah. We definitely learned. We got schooled that way because we said, this is for any woman who travels for business. And that's true, but there are so many different buckets of types of traveler, and, personas basically. And, we've identified them, and there are several, and they each want very different things. So, they're united by the fact that they travel for business, but they're very different people. So
there's a lot here, and I appreciate the fact that you're coming after this from a data perspective. I think on one hand, it's easy to say that, you're cutting off like one sliver of what everybody else does in a broad general way. But I think the depth that you intend to take it to will actually make it probably far more complex and potentially far more rewarding than those generalists are ever going to get to. So I hope this works out for you.
Yeah, thank you. I do too. That is the hope.
Thank you for coming in. I was amazed at the grace with which you handled the issues at Demo Day. And that's exactly when I said, we've got to get her on the show. Ellen needs to be on the show because the show is about presenting ideas at work. It is not about everything going perfectly. Right?
Oh my gosh. Nothing goes. There is not
that show records in a different studio.
Right. Yeah.
Ellen, thanks for coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
All right, that's the end of our show. We could have gone on for a long time. In fact, Ellen and I did talk for a little while longer. We do try to keep the show about half an hour long so that you can listen to us on the commute. But, if you're interested, you can definitely find them on social media. Definitely try the beta if you're a female business traveler. They want you to get into Amelia, Amelia, and that's produced by Go Jane Go. You can find them at gojanego.co. Thank you to Ellen Saksen for coming in. Make sure you hit us up on social media. Let us know what you thought of this week or any other show that we've ever done. And in the meantime, between here and next week's show, I hope you take care of yourself.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, Pitchwerks.